I am going to talk to you today about Atlas Alluring Australia once again. So you might have seen my basic tutorial previously and my first advanced, which looked at some of the different mapping techniques. In Advanced 2, we're going to look at comparing multiple areas and how we can map and look at different species in those two areas. So we are back on Atlas and we are going to compare areas today. So firstly we're going to add an area to a map and we're going to draw a bounding box around two areas. So we're going to have one little area in here, so it's a CBD area, and call that urban. And we are going to add another area over here, maybe out near Balan, and call this rural. So we're defining multiple areas to be able to compare the differences. You can then move the maps by going to the edit functions or leaving them as is and comparing that way. So to compare, we're going to go to Tools and Compare Points, or Compare Areas. So since we've got two areas, we're going to compare areas. Now you can select different things. We're going to select our rural and urban as our areas to compare. We're going to have all records, and we will search just all species. Searching by all species will tell us how many differences are in both the area and how many more might be in rural compared to urban. So I'm going to click next and that'll load. Once that's finished loading, it'll have then what you're looking for and comparing. So we're comparing our urban and rural, and we're looking at all species. It then has the area in square kilometres, the number of occurrences that have been found, and the number of species. So we do have a much bigger area for our rural compared to our urban, but you get a lot more densification of human activity in an urban area, and we're wanting to focus specifically to our site of Maribyrnong and the Maribyrnong River. We can see that there's some species only found in urban, which is 3,550, and there is some species only found in rural of 585. But there's 828 found in both. So once that loads, there will then be a zip file which downloads. You can then open that and you'll have a CSV to show the data. So when we come back into Spatial Portal, we're going to go Import Points. Now since we have this file already, we'll be able to load files. So it's acceptable for CSVs and you want to upload the zipped file. So we're going to select the file, find it in the downloads, and it was my last download. So once that's zipped, we can go upload and it'll upload the data. From there, we can look at column headers. So data or column headers is the first line. Look at area names, square kilometres, and occurrences for each data. So most of it will process itself. Otherwise you can reprocess to be able to find what you would like. It might say that some things are missing. So latitude and longitude will be missing in this urban and rural. You can then upload that by adding it in here. We're then going to go and add a species to the area. So we're going to go by all species, look at urban or rural depending on which one. You can include different data if you've got any, and you can limit different data as well. and then we're going to go next, and that will load into our urban point. So then I have our rural and our urban points as our data, as well as our squares for urban and rural. So we're going to reduce the opacity of each of our points. So I'm going to make it about 15, we can kind of see that. 12, so make that also about 15. So I can still see our areas if we want to. And we've got then our species. So if we go into a species, we can change it to go into any different items. So we might go by kingdom, and that'll sort by kingdom in our area. We can then change the size and opacity just to make it a bit more legible. So we can do that for both. Define it by kingdom. Those colours should be the same if they're both uploaded, which will make it easier to look at. And there we can see the comparisons between them. So we can see that green, which is not supplied, which isn't always helpful, there's a lot more in the urban than the rural. We could then filter by animals, maybe say plants, in both. So they'll show in red and blue. So this is how we can compare two areas and be able to sort of select what we want and show what we want and look at the different things. So you can, except urban is a little bit big. Let's just reduce those point sizes down. Maybe 2. Some more. Move those down a bit. But we can also change from kingdom to species to families. So then we can look at really specific events and parts. So we might then want to go by like scientific name and try and find one that matches. So let's just try and find the one that's, so let's go for Melrose in rural, and we'll try and find the same one in urban. There we go. So if I blow these both up a little bit, we'll be able to see them a little bit more clearly. Oh, a bit too much. To show that this Melrose appears in both areas. So it's really helpful when comparing two areas to see how dense and how many species there are, as well as comparing very specific plants, animals, fungi, and anything like that. So there we go, there's both loaded. So we can see that there's a much more dense populated area in our urban, whereas our rural is a bit more sparse and there's not so many. Thank you for listening.